Hello, this is Tony Smith, coach, speaker for MFO, and an active agent here in Apple Valley, California. I wanted to talk to you today about a great important topic, handling objections. I'm a little confused with this one because it's something that is absolutely required in the field that we've chosen. And at the same time, many agents seem to struggle greatly with the process of learning how to handle objections. Objections are and always will be the same. So since the objections that we receive are always going to be pretty much the same for the rest of our career, it's always a little baffling to me why an agent won't dedicate the time and energy to learn how to handle objections. In fact, it's almost like you're going to perpetuate being embarrassed all the time. If you don't have answers to the most common objections we receive, aren't you in essence always willing to be a little bit embarrassed by the way you perform in front of a seller when they give them to you? You got to ask yourself, are you hoping that they go away? Are you hoping that people don't object in the future? The truth is, it's just one of those required elements that we need to get past in order to make more money and be more productive and profitable in the business we've chosen. So consider it a requirement, not an option. Interesting. So I wrote down a few points about handling objections that you might want to consider. There's no particular order. Number one, we are only typically one objection handled correctly from receiving a commission. Oftentimes, when we handle that last objection right, we get the signature, which means we get the commission. So we have to recognize the fact that we're usually only one objection away from getting paid. Why not understand the answers? 2, I wrote down, again, since objections will and always will be the same, aren't you required to learn the answers for the trade you've chosen? 3, I wrote down, you must understand the difference between an objection, a condition, and the seller's motivation. Okay, the truth is, a condition is that material fact, something that physically has to take place before a buyer or seller can move forward in their desire to purchase or sell real estate. A physical action, right? We also have to understand that if the client is highly unmotivated, don't they tend to object more and more aggressively? So sometimes we just have to step back and recognize the reason I'm receiving all of these incredible objections is that the client just isn't that motivated. I don't know if you've noticed, but a highly motivated person tends to object less. So we need to understand it. Number 4, I wrote down, your strength, knowledge, confidence, and delivery of your presentation is the fastest way to remove or at least reduce the objections you receive. The way you present is often the marker that causes a client to forget about or not see a lot of value in the objections they had. So your presentation is the strength to removing it. 5, I wrote down, your ability to smile, nod, acknowledge, handle, and close is the key to taking care of objections. Listen to the order. Smile, acknowledge, nod, handle, and close. Okay, if you can learn that process with an objection, you've got a fighting chance of getting through them. 6, I wrote down, when presenting or pre-qualifying, it's very important that you understand that you don't stop and handle the objections. Our job during pre-qualifying and during the presentation is to keep moving through the pre-qual, one question after the other, and keep moving through our presentation script all the way through. And if you can learn to delay or postpone a seller's objection, oftentimes the rest of the questions you ask or the rest of the presentation you go through causes that objection to evaporate. And it just kind of disappears and you get the signature and it never comes up again. However, If you have this desire and this urge to stop and handle the objection right on the spot, oftentimes it leads you in a wrong direction and there's no way to recover. So learn to delay it, postpone it, and see how often it just flat disappears. 7, I wrote down, we have the scripts that we use throughout the entire process. And the only place that you really need to have complete memorization and internalization is with the objections that you receive live at a listing presentation. Think of it this way. When you're prospecting back in your office, you've got your prospecting script posted in front of you. You've got some brilliant closes posted over here on the right. You've got the common answers to the common objections you receive here on the left. And you virtually get to refer to all those in writing. Then you do the pre-qualification. You've got the pre-qualification script in front of you. You get to read the questions and write down the answers. And then hopefully you're using our listing presentation in writing or the trigger cards. You've got the scripts right in front of you, right? You can refer to those or even just flat read those scripts to the seller. The only place that you have to rely on full internalization and memorization is learning how to handle objections live at the listing presentation. So if it's me, I would ask you to start there first. If you could learn the most common objections you receive when you're presenting and really understand and internalize and memorize the answers, it gives you so much confidence as we back up through the process. Number 8, I wrote down, what causes a lot of objections? I have a little list here. What causes you to get a lot of objections? A poor presentation. Gosh, we know that a poor presentation will simply cause the client to think about all the objections they have. Sometimes a poor presentation will cause objections in the client right on the spot. Basically, what they're seeing is causing them to doubt you, and then they're going to object. B, I wrote down, low energy and enthusiasm. If you don't have high energy and enthusiasm when you're prospecting, when you're pre-qualifying, and when you're presenting, the energy and enthusiasm is what removes many of the objections in the mind of the seller. Low energy and enthusiasm causes them to think about their objections. C, a lack of knowledge of the market stats. One thing that we know will cause a seller or buyer to object a lot is if they don't think you know what's going on in the market. If you're not able to deliver market stats throughout the process, you're going to cause the seller to doubt you, the buyer to doubt you. Think of it this way. When you know the market stats, you have the authority that a seller or buyer is looking for. And when you have authority, they tend to object less. I wrote down D, failure to pre-qualify. Gosh, I got to tell you, if you want a lot of objections and you want to really have a challenge on listing presentations or with buyer presentations, don't pre-qualify them. Okay? The pre-qualification is designed to draw out the objections that they may or may not have. And the objections, when you can draw them out in the pre-qual, then you can be very prepared. Kind of like a little scouting report for the clients you use. If you don't pre-qualify, that's when you feel like you get blindsided all the time. They throw curveballs at you. It's simply because you didn't pre-qualify. E, I wrote down, working with unmotivated clients. If you want a lot of objections, tie yourself up to a lot of clients that have low motivation. I don't know if you've noticed, but the lower the motivation, the higher price, the more they want to interview a lot of agents, the more they want to think about it, the more they want to cut your commission, the more they want to wait. All of these objections pop out, and a lot of them come from just flat low motivation. So you've got to ask yourself, does my inability to prospect aggressively every day, my inability to generate leads on a regular basis, is that in essence causing me to work with more unmotivated clients and in essence then receive a lot of objections? all the time? Yes, it is. So the simplest approach, learn to generate well, and you reduce the objections you receive. Pretty simple. F, I wrote down a lack of confidence. You've got to ask yourself, if you have a lack of confidence, can the buyer or seller feel it and see it in you? If your lack of confidence shows up from the time the door opens on a listing presentation, or from the time when you first meet that buyer, if they can see and feel a lack of confidence, don't they naturally just want to object? So how do you build your confidence? You learn what to say in every selling situation. If you can learn what to say, your confidence goes up. You learn the stats and the trends in the marketplace. If you know what's going on in the market, your confidence goes up. You dress properly. If you're wearing a beautiful suit or a beautiful outfit, your confidence goes up. So the more confidence you have, the less objections you receive. Pretty straightforward. So listen, I know that every single person listening to this recording can indeed master handling objections. It requires some work. It requires some time. It requires your diligence and your commitment to once and for all figuring out to the answers to the things that you're going to receive for the rest of your career. So you might as well get to work on it. Have some fun with these points. Love to see you out there. Talk to you soon.